What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Or fan, I'm not sure how many people we've even got in the chat today hanging out just yet. Oddly scheduled day. Today's show is brought to you by Impasto's Pizza and Pasta in Hoboken, New Jersey, who were responsible for my ugly morning. That was, I'll spare you guys the details, but their chicken parm probably wasn't fully cooked last night, and didn't really go so well for me this morning. So I was a little bit not feeling great, a little slow getting out of bed this morning. Didn't quite realize that we had a split slate with DK starting and including those 1 o'clock games. So apologies to the DK crowd out there. I did not know that they went early, included those and started at 1, so I was focused on the 4 o'clock slate. I figured I could pull myself together, get on a show by now, and I feel great now. I mean, I'm drinking coffee and everything, so everything's fine now, but yeah, just a slow start this morning, so apologies to the DK crowd. Looks like we got Trey out there, we got Power out there. Yank's doing well. Yeah, I saw Stanton mashed a homer. Trey says he's playing all 3 slates. Great day of baseball. I'd love to see that. I think the evening slate or the afternoon slate here is absolutely tremendous. I think this is going to be a fun one to play, largely because it's a really short pitching slate. There are not a lot of great options on the mound here, so I think we've got a ton of killer spots for offense. It looks like Vegas kind of agrees with that. They've got a handful of teams totaled over the 5-run mark on just a 7-game slate, so there's a lot to go through here. I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a high-scoring, hitting-focused slate. Dennis is in the chat. Dennis says, you're one of the guys who likes his chicken well done instead of medium rare. Yeah, crazy me. I like my chicken fully cooked, not no traces of pink in it. It sucks, though, when it's like while I was eating it, and it's chicken parm, so it's covered in sauce and breading and all the and the cheese and everything. But while I'm eating it, I was like, when you get that chicken that's it's like a little rubbery, not like exactly what you would typically want in a piece of chicken. It had that feel to it. And I got through like half of it and I tossed it. I was like, this probably isn't going to go well. And yeah, it didn't. As of about 5 a.m., I was up and down a few times. Not pretty. Trey says he's concentrated on like 4 or 5 guys for the early DK slate. Yeah, I think that was a good approach to the early slash full main slate over on the DK was, maybe grab a few of those high-end pitchers, because it's not like that slate really added a bunch of tremendous guys. There was Garrett Cole, obviously, on that slate. I forget who else. But I think there are a few strong options in this one that we'll talk about. But yeah, it's a day where like just booking a corner or two of pitching position and then just spreading out over bats in combination with those guys is kind of a strong strategy. Oh, Gaussman was the other guy off the top that was he was crushing. Hopefully you got him included in your pool there, because he was crushing my model when I put it together, his start against the Tigers. Ran a full update the other day too that caught a lot of recent in-season performance. Not recent, but like I fed the model a little bit more of this year. I typically do that around the All-Star break. I let a lot more in, so I've done that, and it drove Gaussman's projection up nicely. Trey says, to be controversial, how do you feel about Blackburn? I kind of like him. Yeah, I don't think that's entirely crazy. We'll get to him here, and I'll just kind of dive into the slate, but I don't think that's totally nuts. He's a talented enough guy. I definitely think that the Vegas line is probably correct, that the Red Sox end up with 5+ runs on the day, but he could go out there and have a good start over 6, maybe give up 2 or 3, handful of strikeouts, book you a quality start. The win is in question. That's where you run into trouble when you're rostering these A's pitchers and these lower end pitchers, is there's trouble around the bonuses. And that's what I don't like doing with the low end starters on a bad team playing against a good team when the good team is so massively favored. That's the one trade-off there. But on a really short day for pitching, especially like in the instance that the A's got to Paxton, I think that takes one of the bigger names off the board immediately. So that would be a good play in that case. So yeah, I think he's on the board. He's one of the more playable low-end mid-range starters, even with the conditions in that game. And we'll get to it. I'll talk through all that again momentarily. But let's dive in. We don't actually have a ton of time. It's 2:20. I want to try and jump off 3:15 so that I can actually build lineups for the 4:05 start. So let's get this thing going. Dennis, is pitching thin enough where you wish that Bradish was on the slate? Yes, my favorite pitcher in the league, Kyle Bradish, whose name I will never get wrong again. Probably will. Let's dive in. Rangers and the Nats. We've got most of these lineups too, by the way, which makes it good to talk about it. Only the Pirates and D-backs lineups are missing. So that's a plus. But the first one on deck, it's one of those slates where we're getting two 405 starts and then a bunch of 410 starts. So no room to move things around, no room for late swapping today, but it's also fun to just have the sprints. I like these sprint slates where just everything's happening at the same time, and we get everything all in one shot here. So going to be a fun one today. I think this one to start it out is kind of interesting. Haney's got a lot of upside against the Nationals here. I know they're better against lefties. We talked about it yesterday. We went through some of the numbers against lefties yesterday. They went out and scored 2 runs against Cody Bradford, who is not as talented as Andrew Heaney. The Nationals are better against lefties. It's important to remember that they're still not good, right? There's a couple guys who have been good against lefties. There's one guy who is flat good this year anyway, Lane Thomas, 301, 348, 501 in that lineup, a 200 ISO, 14 homers, half of them against lefties, good numbers against lefties. CJ Abrams in the top spot in that lineup, not good against lefties this year, not overly good overall, an 81 WRC plus, 12 stolen bases, 234, 284, 392. Totally inept against lefties. I think his WRC plus was in the 50s. It's in the notes article that I put up. So naturally he's leading off today. Heimer Candelario has been bad against lefties this year. Only one of his 12 home runs have come in this side of splits, so naturally he's hitting third. Meneses hit his home run last night. He's got 4 now on the season. Better against lefties in a marginal sense, but a 281, 324, 382 hitter. A usable piece, but he's a low-end guy on any other team in baseball. For this team, he's a cleanup hitter. Keibert Ruiz, good power bat that has a better X-slug than an actual slugging percentage. We've talked about that a number of times. 9 home runs and 297 plate appearances. A tidy little 8.88 in the home run model here against the lefty. And Heaney does give up power. Let's not forget that. So, like, Keibert would be in play. Stone Garrett would be in play for me. He's got power against lefties. He's raked against lefties this season in advanced ISO and advanced WRC plus in the split. But it's a very small sample. Ildemaro Vargas, Luis Garcia, Alex Call, so you don't even get the version of the lineup that has Riley Adams, who has crushed against lefties this year in a small sample. So it's just a low-end team going up against Heaney, who, if he can avoid his frequent home run problems, is basically maybe not an ace this year. He's a step down from that this year, but he's one of the stronger strikeout options on the slate at 25.1% this year. 4.12 at ERA, a 4.47 xFIP with a lot of these home run problem making some noise in the run numbers. I think he's just a very talented pitcher when he's going right, and we've seen that in years past. Last year, 35.5% strikeouts in 72 and 2/3, so a similar type sample. So down 10 points in the strikeout rate is not what you want to see. Big dip in the swinging, big dip in the CSW. The contact has actually been wrangled a little bit compared to where it was last year, though. So that's kind of what I wanted to illustrate, is like Heaney's always got these home run issues. Even when he's going right, he has issues with the long ball. So if you get him on the right day where he avoids those mistakes, or if you get him on a day where he goes out and strikes out 7-8 of these Nationals, maybe more, but allows a home run, but they still only put up a 2-3 run spot on him, I think we're perfectly fine with Heaney shares. It's not like he's expensive. 8,200, 8,800. That is easy to afford, and he projects really well. There's a handful of guys between 33 and 35 points at the top of the board. That's kind of where I'm going to live for pitching today. They're at a variety of prices, and then there's a lot of just like also-ran guys, kind of like Jake Gervin on the other side of this one. I think we're targeting Jake Gervin with some bats here again. A lot of guys above or near the magic number in the Texas lineup. We get the lineup that has, let's see, Jonah Heim, Jankowski, Duran, and Taveras at the bottom. That's fine. Not my preferred version with Jankowski in there, but I'll take it. We've got Duran and Taveras at the bottom. Best 8-9 duo in the league so far this year outside of Atlanta. It's probably Arcia and Michael Harris, and then these two guys, although arguably with Harris's underperformance in the season's first, third, it's these two guys. Both of these guys have been outstanding all season this year. 12 home runs for Duran, 10 for Taveras, a 142 WRC plus, a 126 WRC plus in, samples they're not full seasons, but that's a half season sample for both of those guys at this point. That's pretty good output. Jonah Heim, obviously a tremendous power bat at catcher, Adolis Garcia and Josh Young in the middle of the lineup. Tons and tons of power there. The 2-star infielders at the top. And then good old Nathaniel Lowe, just Mr. Reliable at cheap pricing in the middle of the lineup. He hasn't been as good this year, 269, 360, 421 with 9 homers, 152 ISO, but still 19% better than average creating runs. He was just much better last year, 43% better than average creating runs. Knocked 27, long balls 302, 358, 492. If a shade of this guy comes back for the second half, this team takes yet another step forward. But just getting a guy with that kind of potential in the heart of this lineup for 4,600, 3,200, it's just a bargain every single day. So I really like including Nathaniel Lowe in a bunch of Ranger stacks if I'm building them, and I think it's a killer spot. I expect they're going to be really, really popular, but going up against Jake Irvin, a nothing pitcher here, 4.70 ERA, 5.62 xFIP, 16.8% strikeouts. Not terrible in terms of the home runs allowed, but giving up some barrels. 2.52% home run rate. I expect that several of these numbers are going to be higher tomorrow. I am firmly on the Rangers side of this one. You can see Seager, Garcia, and Young all above the magic number, and then Jonah Heim right next to it, Marcus Semien right next to it. So tons of power here. Definitely like the Rangers stack. It's not a spot where I think I'm going to really worry about public ownership too much on these stacks. I'm just going to kind of get to them. I think it's just that kind of a slate where you just kind of need to roster the good spots because the bad spots are pretty bad on this one. So this one was enthusiasm about Heaney. Minor shares of like the good righties in this lineup, which it would really be minor shares of like stacks with Lane Thomas, Joey Meneses, Keibert Ruiz, and Stone Garrett in them. And that's about it. I don't really need anybody else from that lineup. Not saying that nobody else could contribute, and it's certainly in a rising tides kind of a thing. If you roster even 10 national stacks, you should obviously go outside of that 4-man group. If you're on DK, you can certainly you include Keibert and then maybe Candelario, or if you wanted CJ Abrams at shortstop. But like I said, he's just been lousy against lefties this year. So I don't love the spot for the Nats. Love the spot for the Rangers bats. No interest in Jake Irvin. Rocks and the Giants, another major spot for power potential in my mind. Nothing here is impacted by the wind. That's not in the home run models. I know the wind is blowing out in San Francisco, but that doesn't matter quite as much in this park as it does in, say, like a Wrigley Field. These are just pure hitter versus pitcher numbers. Connor Siebold, not good. 6.62 ERA, 5.57 xFIP, 16.5% strikeout rate on the season. Not pretty so far. A 4.95% home run rate. That's highly, highly targetable with these bats. 9.3% barrels. All the reason in the world to believe that the Giants are going to explode against this pitcher. Lamont Wade, what is it? Top 7 here. All have home run marks above the 10 in the home run model. The dual catcher configuration with Bailey and Sable both in the lineup, like that. Gives you good options and flexibility on DK. You can even play them both in the same lineup with Sable carrying outfield eligibility. Outfield eligibility on the FanDuel slate too. 3 players with multi-position on the FanDuel slate, including Brett Wisely at the bottom spot. Dead minimum price on both sites for Wisely. 91 plate appearances, 2 home runs, 2 stolen bases, a 41 WRC+. It hasn't been pretty, but a min-priced hitter does help you offset. No career history. He's a rookie. Wade at the top of the lineup regains his form against righties. He rakes against righties. 10.4% barrels, 42.8% hard hits. The home runs, the power has dropped off a little bit. He took a bump at some point. I forget what the injury was, and I think maybe that hurt him in terms of the power potential. But he's still getting on at a great clip. 16.8% walk rate, a 406 on base, 137 WRC+. A great correlated scoring piece. Who I do think the power is real. I think the power will come back as soon as whatever kink in his shoulder or whatever it was works out. But a good bat to start things off nonetheless, and he's never pricey. 3,800, 3,100 for a guy who's creating runs 37% better than average. I basically don't care if he hits a home run. Just go out there, get on base, and do what you do. Jock, 4,600, 3,300, great buy for power upside, 16.15 in the home run model to lead the team. One of the slate leaders on the day, if not the slate leading mark. Major power upside for Jock. Wilmer Flores getting a start against the righty here, 2,800, 2,700. I love Wilmer's power on both sides. He's not exclusively a platoon guy. He was like way back, just the guy that you'd stick in lineups against lefties. You didn't need him against righties. He's a good hitter overall at this point in his career, just against righties, against lefties, whoever they roll out there. 8 home runs on 197 plate appearances, 271, 335, 458, 16% better than average creating runs. Conforto and Yaz, lefties in the heart of the lineup there. Love the power upside from both of those guys. I was going back and forth, so I used Conforto in the team picks, and then I used Yaz as my my overall home run pick for the day. So I like both those spots, 12 for Conforto, 10 for Yaz on the season, both at or above the league average for run creation. Bailey and Sable, both above average for run creation. And then Crawford and Wisely at the bottom, playable parts. Rockies side, we're getting Ryan Walker to open this one. I think we're getting Sean Manaea as the bulk reliever. If anybody's seen that confirmed, let me know in the chat here. I know we're not drawing a ton of ratings today, but if I know a lot of you guys have eyeballs on that sort of thing. So if that's popped up and they've confirmed anything yet, let me know. I had Manaea, but I know Jake Junis is also rested. So that could be a total curveball for anybody planning on going to this spot, which makes me hesitant to say that Manaea, if he gets 4 innings here, is going to look pretty good. Going up against this Rockies team gives anybody a little bit of upside. Junis would also probably look pretty good. But I've got Manaea in here. I think the lefty plays a little bit better in this spot, so I expect that's what they're going to do. 28.6% strikeouts from Manaea this year, a 5.49 ERA, but a much more realistic, more like him 3.94 xFIP. That's the number that I believe in. He's really come together in this bulk relief role they've had him pitching in. It's working for him. Still ugly numbers in terms of the premium contact so far, 11.8% barrels, 42.1% hard hits, 3.17% home runs. So he's given up a little bit of pop, but a lot of that came in those first couple starts, the ugly, pure starts that he had early in the season, has been pitching well and racking up a lot of strikeouts and putting up Slate relevant scores in that bulk relief role. So if we get him confirmed, then I think you can use him. If you don't get the confirmation, I'm skeptical. I'm worried about it. Giancarlo Stanton triples in the bottom of the 5th. Stanton coming to life before our eyes. Look at that. Love it. So, I think there is some definite upside for that spot if we get the confirmation. Sorry, I got distracted by a text there. Value there. No real interest in Walker opening the game. Just pure opener in that spot. No real interest in the Rockies bats. They led off Tovar yesterday after we talked about it. Finally, I thought it made an impact on this Rockies front office, but nope, they were just giving Profar a night off. He's right back at the top of the lineup today. Tovar hitting second, so the kid's at least been good. Like, Tovar had a real rocky start, has pulled himself together. Good is a strong word, but 266, 303, 438, a 172 ISO, 9 home runs, 84 WRC plus. So 16% worse than average creating runs. You don't like to see that, but you feel like if he was in that leadoff spot, maybe he's got a little bit of a boost in bringing that around. And you just know that Profar's not a good major league player at this point. That's why he's bounced around. That's why nobody wanted him in even spring training until the Rockies signed him. McMahon, Chris Bryant back in the lineup, CJ Cron. It's a good little power core, 3 through 5 there. If you're going to Rockies, I think you can focus on that. Particularly if they do bring out the lefty, there's the idea of righties against the lefty and some of that premium right-handed power that a guy like Cron brings. You lose McMahon in the lefty-lefty though, and he's been their best, most reliable power hitter this year. So it's a take or leave kind of a situation. Randall Grichuk hasn't hit for a lot of power since he came back. Only 4 home runs, a 162 ISO from a guy who used to be just kind of a power guy, 250-ish type hitter. Hitting 294, 361, 457 has been productive, 106 WRC plus. Alan Trejo, Brenton Doyle, Austin Wynns, kind of a weak bottom third. Doyle, moderately interesting, 10.1% barrels, 40.4% hard hits, 6 homers, 12 stolen bases, but a 52 WRC plus. So let's be realistic about the play. So this one was definite interest in Giants bats no matter what happens. Interest in Sean Manaea, but only if we're confirmed to have him, and really only on the DK slate. 7,300 on FanDuel. There's the potential there. Like you can see, this is on a day when the top pitchers are projected at like 35 and a group is at 33 to 35. 29 is certainly in play. That's on, I think, a 4.5 inning projection, the way my model works. So even without the quality start, I think he's viable there at that price on a short slate. I just want that confirmation, but definitely a more interesting play on DK if we get the confirmation. No real interest in Rockies, no interest whatsoever in Connor Siebold. Brady Singer, Gavin Williams, come on down. Massive interest in Gavin Williams on this slate. Still think he's way underpriced for his talent. Kid was striking out 30% in AA, 30+% in AAA to get before his call up. One of the premium pitching prospects in all of baseball. So a definite option for me. And we just saw this spot for him, a week ago? 2 weeks ago? Not that that's predictive of what's going to happen today, but we're getting a top prospect who, in his first start against this team the other day, struck out 6, which was his best start, allowed 1 hit. I'm doing this by memory. It's in the article, which I thought I had open. Struck out 6. And where the hell is it? I know it's in here. I hate when I can't immediately find these things. There it is. Williams faced these Royals in his second start. He worked 7 innings of 1 hit ball with 6 strikeouts and 1 walk in easily the best of his 3 outings. So we're expecting a lot more strikeouts from this kid. 16.7% is not what he's going to be in the majors. Maybe he doesn't go to 30. Maybe he sits at like the 24-25% range. But he is a highly regarded prospect. He's got plus stuff, an excellent fastball that rides up into triple digits, a great wipeout breaking pitch. So I expect big things from this pitcher. He's on the dynasty team, so maybe I'm overly enthusiastic. But we just saw him shut this team down pretty effectively, and we've seen far worse pitching dominate this team for strikeouts. 26.1% strikeout rate for this confirmed version of the Royals lineup that doesn't have Sal Perez in it, so another tick in Williams' favor. Their best bat out of the lineup. Michael Garcia has been effective off the top, 287, 347, 391, 104 WRC plus. A hit tool and speed focus kind of a guy. You can use him in Royal stacks if you're attacking Gavin Williams. It would be, for me, Michael Garcia, Bobby Witt, Nick Prado, MJ Melendez, and not much else in this lineup. Freddie Fermin, Kyle Isbell, Michael Massey, Drew Waters, Nicky Lopez. Not a lot of productive bats. Everybody, Freddie Fermin, I guess, is at a 111 WRC plus in 98 plate appearances, 4 home runs as a moderately interesting catcher since he's hitting 5th. You can include him if you're building stacks on DK and you're going to Royals aggressively. But for me, this is like a very light spot, a contrarian spot maybe. I expect Williams will be popular because he only costs $7,850. So maybe you can target the ownership. But without Sal in that lineup, it really takes him down a peg. Still no Pasquantino in the lineup, obviously, with his injury. So he's just out of the picture right now for this team. So they're significantly weakened. This is a spot to target for pitching, I think. So I'm going to get probably over the top with Gavin Williams shares here. If it burns me, it burns me. But it's that kind of a slate where I think you want to occupy some good positions and then take some mix and match and some blending on some of the other spots. Brady Singer is the interesting one. The projection isn't great, but on a short day, it's playable for 6,100, 6,600. He hasn't really been playable for most of this season. 18.6% strikeouts, a 5.52 ERA, a 4.53 xFIP. A lot of ugliness for Singer so far. From a pitcher that I really liked coming into the year to take a big step forward, become a good, reliable pitcher, not necessarily an ace, but a good second, third starter in a rotation, a reliable guy that we could deploy for DFS. He was basically that last year. Right? I mean, 3.23 ERA last year, a 3.30 xFIP, a 24.2% strikeout rate, only walk 5.6%, good CSW, no real issues with power. He was really good over 24 starts, 153 and a third last year. He was better 2 years ago than he was this year so far. So I believe there's talent there. I think he can find it. He's had 2 effective starts in a row. Again, not that that's any kind of predictive thing, but on the idea of maybe he was just lost on the mound, maybe there was a mechanical hiccup that they corrected. I like to look for the spots where it's, all right, guy that I do believe in the talent, something's going on, and then all of a sudden there's a correction. That could be an indicator, a positive indicator that something got fixed there, particularly with pitching. It's not that he's gone out and dominated the last 2 starts. It was 6 innings against these same Guardians, 4 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, no runs, and then a 7-inning start against LA, which is encouraging. 4 strikeouts, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 4 hits in 7 innings against the Dodgers. That's encouraging. The start against these Guardians is encouraging, and they've been inept at the plate this year. The Guardians have not been good. So if we're hunting for a good spot to play Singer at a cheap price, I think this is probably the one. He can gain a little ground with another good start here and gain a little faith for the next time out. But I think I'm going to roll the dice with Singer in some shares. It won't be a huge position because a lot of my pitching is going to be occupied by the good pitchers. But I think it's worth taking up a position with Singer here. It's not going to cost you. It's not going to burn you in terms of the price. He's very playable as an SP2 on the DK slate, which gets very, very thin. So going up against a Guardians lineup that has still just 2 hitters above the waterline for WRC plus for run creation this year, A lot of guys lingering in the 90s, but only Ramirez and Josh Naylor above average for run creation. Only those two guys hitting for any kind of power. Really only those two guys getting on base at a reliable clip or anything else. Steven Kwan, I've mentioned a few times, his on base is down like 40 points over last year. His WRC plus went from the 120s to the 93 range. Yeah, 124 down to 93. But this is the crucial part of that. The OBP going from 373 down to 336. That just kills everything he does. He's just a correlated scoring play. You can put him in your lineups if you're building full Guardian stacks, but I greatly prefer just going to like Rosario, Ramirez, Naylor, or Ramirez, Naylor, Jimenez, something like that, or these five guys here. That's your core of talent on this team. Ramirez and Jimenez are 2020 type talents who are... Jimenez has a shot to get there, I guess, this year. It's 7-14 at the halfway point, but he's got work to do. Rosario's probably not going to do it. 2 home runs, 9 stolen bases, going to need a monster second half. But two guys that I do believe there's talent there in terms of moderate amount of power, moderate speed when they get on, good run creators, better players than they've shown this year. So if you're going to Guardians, I would throw those two guys into the mix. Josh Bell, talked about him a bunch, 41.7% hard hits, 8.7% barrels, maybe something to believe in there. Decent walk rate, not really getting on base at a great clip, so some bad BABIP luck in there, I guess. 9 home runs on the season. He hit his 9th last night, if I'm remembering correctly. Only a 150 ISO and 90 WRC plus. Hasn't done a lot to inspire faith, but is a guy who hit 27 home runs 2 years ago, 17 home runs last year, so there's the belief that he's a good player. Brennan Straw, Bo Naylor on the bottom end, take him or leave him, mix and match type guys. My favorite out of that group is probably Naylor, especially if you're on DK where you need a catcher. 2,800 cheap catcher power, that's worth going to a few times, but not a great spot in the lineup, obviously. So this one is a ton of enthusiasm about Gavin Williams. A little bit of meat on the bone for Brady Singer. Don't really care about either one of these stacks. Low priority stacks. I think you can occupy a little bit of the top 4 here of Kansas City just to target some Williams ownership if he's explosively popular. If he's not popular, I don't think that's really all that worth doing. And then I do think the Guardians are playable in terms of going up against Singer and all the atrocious numbers he's posted this season. So I don't want to undersell the opportunity for the Guardians here. There's definitely some upside on the board. They're projected at a 4.90 in Vegas in terms of run total. There's several teams over 5 today, several in the mid-5s. They'll be the more popular options today. But I think people might get a little carried away with Guardian stacks when they're still not good just because it's Singer on the mound. And if we get one of those days, even if he has an okay start, goes out, gives up 4 or 5 runs, irrelevant DFS start, but limits them to just 4 or 5 runs and a moderate amount. Like, is that not the most realistic outcome for this lousy Cleveland Guardians team today? So I think this is a team that we can continue just kind of trying to say that they're probably most likely going to land right around that 4 or 5 runs and not a big bendy DFS kind of a game. So I'll have some, but not going to get carried away with them by any means. And if they gain a lot of popularity, I'm just going to get away from it. And we're plowing through this thing. 4 games to go. See what's going on in the chat. Blackburn scratched. We'll have to... Oh, that was a homer that Stanton hit, Trey? Hit the foul pole? The fair pole? What do you guys think? Fair pole or foul pole? I know we call it the foul pole, traditionally. But there's a good argument to be made that it should be called the fair pole. Especially since things that hit it are fair balls. Fanatic, what's going on, bud? Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. Trey says foul pole because it determines whether it's a fair or foul ball, but that argument goes both ways. I know it is the foul pole. Don't get me wrong. I know that we call it the foul pole, and that's the correct name of it. I just think there's an interesting discussion there. Not a lot going on in the chat. So who's on the hill for the A's then? Austin Pruitt taking the bump. All right. It's gonna be a pain in the ass to update. Hang on. Exciting airtime while I see if I can jam him into the model here. It's not gonna be perfect, but I think I can. It's more than I would typically. That's only. All right, I'm just gonna take his whole career. Bang. Fixed. Austin Pruitt on the bump for the Athletics. 30 2/3 innings, 3 starts, 12.8% strikeout rate, 5.12 xFIP, 2.93 ERA on the season, 3.2% home runs, 4.9% barrels, but a significant launch angle. So I imagine the barrels are just happenstance, just small sample. I would expect they'll go up, but 27.2% hard hits. Actually, maybe not. Probably still also just happenstance there. All these appearances, so it's the 3 starts are all just opener situations. Last time out, he went 3 innings as the opener, though. Faced 9 hitters, struck out 1. Maybe a 3-inning opener kind of a situation here for Pruitt. Have they announced anything in terms of a bulk reliever? Pruitt starting Saturday. Oh, that was 3 days ago that he that was just on the 5th that he went that 3 innings as the opener. Trey says I'm 35 but 85 when it comes to baseball. Leave my game alone. I'm with you, buddy. I am definitely with you on that one. Don't like a lot of the changes they've made. I've come to grips with the pace of play stuff. Like I think we've talked about on shows, because that's really like a lot of what they got rid of there was just like the guy steps out after every pitch, redoes his batting gloves, taps the plate 3 times, steps back in, then the pitcher steps off the mound, gets rid of that stuff. But I hate the stuff that's just like we're catering to people who already don't like baseball, like the runner on second base to shorten the game with extra innings is just stupid. Anything with that they're going to do with designated runners is stupid. The robot umpires, that's going to kill me if they bring in robot umps. Trey saying 2 innings, 3 max. Yeah, the 3 even might be in question, though, since he went the other day. Yeah, exactly. I've come around on the pitch clock. I've come around on that. The 2.5 hour games work. It was a change, but it's okay. I just don't like the taking away a long extra inning game. Like, why would you do that? That's so exciting when a game, hey, we're in the 16th inning. These teams are battling back and forth. It's been tense every inning of extra inning. Like, it's because it's sudden death. Like, it's just dumb. I don't know. I don't get it. Anyway. So let's assume that Pruitt's going like 2 innings here. We don't need him, even at 4,000 on the DK slate. I just don't think there's any upside. He's not like he's a 30% strikeout guy that's going to maybe go 2 innings for 4K. 55 on the FanDuel slate, just off the board. Didn't look like it really changed any of the projections for the Red Sox in terms of their power upside. Might have probably gained some ground with these lefties. I think Devers probably spiked a little. Yoshida probably spiked a little when I changed that. I should have watched that when I changed it. But no real concerns. It's not like the Red Sox were in a bad spot and then went to a good one. They're just going from a good spot to a good spot here. So I think we're just loading up on Red Sox bats. Jarren Duran, Yoshida, Turner, Devers. Off the top there, that core of guys I think is all hyper playable. I like Duran in the leadoff spot here. It's not like Alex Verdugo was a bad leadoff hitter. Great on base skills, really good hit tool. 356 on base, so 160 ISO, 118 WRC plus for the season, 287 in the front end of the triple slash. So he's an effective guy in the leadoff role too. But Duran's been getting on base slightly more this season and has that speed element when he gets on. So I like him in that leadoff role, and I think Verdugo's a really effective 5 hitter here. And I like putting him ahead of Tristan Casas at the bottom of the lineup because he can get on base and set the table again for Casas. So I think it's a good version of this lineup, 1 through 7. I like what they're doing here. Devers, obviously, every single time we touch on this team, 4,900 is way too cheap. 3,800 is still too cheap on the FanDuel slate, but it's closer to correct. This is a premium star bet. 20 home runs on the season, a 241 ISO, better than last year in barrels, better than last year in hard hits. No reason that Rafi Devers should be that cheap. Casas, monster second half is coming. I still believe that. 2,600, 2,800. Get him while he's cheap. I really like that spot for some home run potential here. Pushing just slightly below the magic number. I think we get a decent crack at a home run from Tristan Casas here. So he's going to be a big part of my Red Sox stacks. Arroyo and Enrique Hernandez from the bottom of the lineup. You don't love them, but Hernandez at least has the triple position eligibility on FanDuel, dual on DK, and then Connor Wong, a stout hitter as a catcher. 6 home runs on the season and 220 plate appearances. In this matchup, he could certainly go deep as well. It's primarily 1 through 6. Athletic side of things, Nick Allen, Jordan Diaz, Ryan Noda, Brent Rooker. It's just an all-star team, top to bottom, going up against James Paxton. Gausman gave up 2 runs. I love baseball. I really do. God, he was projected at an obnoxiously high number. It's a number that I wouldn't have shown you guys. I would have corrected his innings. I would have been like, yeah, that's a little bit too high. Let's trim that number for public consumption. And that's what I do when I work it into my model and my sorting process as well. Otherwise, I would just get 150 shares of Kevin Gausman lineups. So I would have definitely culled the number down a little bit and given something more realistic. But that's hilarious that he gave up runs already. Typical. Baseball's amazing, man. It really is. And that's why it's like, when I see people get frustrated with results in like baseball DFS, it's like, dude, you gotta understand just the nature of this game. A guy who succeeds 30% of the time at the plate goes to the Hall of Fame. 30% of the time. Imagine if you could get a massive promotion or a huge raise from doing your job right 30% of the time. Imagine your partner was incredibly satisfied if you did your job well 30% of the time. Like, it's so crazy that's how the sport works. And people just don't get that. People, day to day, like, oh my God, I just can't figure this out. And there's a couple people that I like a lot in our Discord that I want to hopefully get this across to, because it's not them in a lot of cases. Like, people post lineups and it's like, yeah, I would have played that lineup. So there's a lot of days where it's just like, hey, I thought this lineup was going to be good, and it got me like 30 FanDuel points. It's just how the game works. A lot of zeros every day. Not zero totals, but 0 individuals. I don't think I've ever put up a 0 in baseball. It's possible. I might have. Put up a negative pitching score and nobody gets a base hit in the lineup. It's possible. If you do that in basketball, you're probably building bad lineups. If you put up a 0 negative score in basketball, you've probably built a pretty shitty lineup. In baseball, it's totally possible. So enthusiasm for the Red Sox. All things Red Sox here. I buried the lead on James Paxton. Projects really, really well. Going up against the A's, the second most inept lineup in baseball against left-handed pitching this year, with a really, really low WRC plus. It's in the article. Like 30 points below average creating runs. 25 points below average creating runs against lefties in a split where most of the league is pretty successful. Like, I was looking at one of the teams on this slate that's facing a lefty, and they were ranked 18th with a 104. It was the Phillies, I think. Yeah, Phillies ranked 18th with a 104 WRC plus against lefties. So a lot of teams create runs above average collectively against left-handed pitching. It's just this team is really, really bad at it. So I think we fire away with Paxton shares. Could totally burn us like the Gausman spot, but projects really well and justifiable. 31.1% strikeouts, a 2.70 ERA, 3.29 xFIP. Dude was out of the game for like 3 years with injuries. Came back stronger than ever. Pitching really, really well. Totally worth going to at 10.5, 10.6 on both sides. Fire up the James Paxton shares with enthusiasm. No real need to go to the Athletics. If you do, I would grab probably some Brent Rooker. There is a 12.76 in the home run model for him. Jordan Diaz with his 10.68. Neither one of those guys are reliable high-end players. At least Diaz is cheap. Nick Allen is a nothing bat at the top of the lineup. That's a really weird spot for Nick Allen. He's a pure 9 hitter. Like, somebody in this lineup is better suited to that leadoff role. That's a weird decision. 250 on base percentage, a 41 WRC plus, 202, 250, 239. An odd home run, I guess, that he hit earlier this season. A 1.1% barrel rate, 22% hard hits. Mystifying decision to put Nick Allen in the leadoff spot. 5.9% walk rate. Hey, all right. At least he doesn't strike out a ton. 17.6% strikeouts. Yikes. So, yeah, it's Diaz, Rooker. Jordan Diaz, by the way, not Aledmus. You can use Aledmus as like a movable part, but he's a career backup utility man type who's getting regular plate appearances now at the back end of his career in Oakland. That's how lousy this team is. JJ Bleday, lefty, I don't love. Shea Langoliers would probably be the next most playable guy with his sneaky pop behind the plate. 10 homers on the season, a 163 ISO, but only 80 WRC plus. Not like he's been overly productive or reliable. So yeah, really don't like this A's lineup here. If I was going there, it would be Diaz, Jordan, Noda, Rooker, Langoliers as a 4-man probably, and then I would probably work in Aledmus if I'm on DK. It's not pretty. Enthusiasm up and down for the Red Sox. Enthusiasm for Paxton. Not much on the A side of things. 255. Let's hit the gas pedal a little bit. Big spot here for the Reds. Another team showing 1 through 7. Everybody above the magic number for power going up against Colin Ray here. Ray has been okay in spots this season. He's not a total disaster on the mound, but he coughs up power. 3.48% home run rate, 40.8% hard hits. A lot of power comes through the model against him from not sure what, but it has been pretty reliable all season long, and I've targeted it to great success. So I'm going to continue doing that with a Reds team that I like quite a bit. I love them for DFS purposes because they hit for power and steal bases. A lot of guys with double-digit pop and steals here. A lot of guys on their way to double-digit power, like you see Ellie in the middle here, 4 home runs, but 13 stolen bases already in 126 plate appearances. So he's got more stolen bases than Jonathan India. He's approaching Jake Fraley's stolen base output. We totally believe that the home runs are coming. He's extremely expensive at $6,000, $4,400 for a kid who's made 126 plate appearances in the show, but he's been worth it so far, so I love going to that spot. And then there's just great pieces around Ellie that everybody hits for power. Everybody steals bases, or guys like Joey Votto do one or the other. Joey's got 6 home runs in 59 plate appearances. You can absolutely include Joey Votto in stacks. Spencer Steer has been dynamite all season long. 368 plate appearances, 14 homers, 9 steals, a 128 WRC plus. He's hitting 7th for this team now. First base and outfield eligible, though, still very relevant for what they do. Top of the lineup with TJ Friedl. Moderate power, good speed, good on base skills, ahead of guys like Matt McClain and Jonathan India up there. I just really like this Reds lineup. I like everything they're doing right now. I like the flexibility that you get out of 3 guys on DK, 2 guys on FanDuel. The pricing has come up, like they're not the cheapo Reds anymore, but I think they're worth these prices, especially in this spot against Colin Ray. So I'll definitely be getting some Reds in my life in this slate. It looks like a killer spot to me. I like their power opportunity. I like their run creation opportunity. So I will be going to this spot. They're totaled at 4.56. The Brewers are actually carrying a higher total against Luke Weaver here. So if we're going to pitching in this one, I don't really want to. I don't know that there's that much difference between Luke Weaver and Colin Ray right now. They don't really project with much difference between them. 1.5 on the FanDuel scale there. Half a strikeout difference. 6,200, 7,100 for Ray, 6,500, 6,200 for Weaver. Neither one of these guys is looking good. I think you can, as a low expectation dart, throw a dart with either one of them. You're talking about guys with 4 and change xFIPs, higher ERAs in both cases. Oh no, actually, Ray's ERA is a little bit lower than his mid-4s xFIP. I apologize to Mr. Colin Ray. 6.72 ERA for Weaver obviously has been a lot worse in the actual runs allowed than in the expected FIP number, which is the number that tells us what should be expected for what he's doing on the mound in reality, the things that he can control. So 18% strikeouts versus 19% for Ray on the other side, 6.6% walks versus 7.9. I'm just kind of more inclined, despite what Vegas may be showing us, to attack this Brewers lineup that hasn't been great this season, that doesn't have a bunch of guys targeted over the magic number in my home run model. Like, based on what my model's saying, it's not necessarily saying go play Luke Weaver, but it's saying that the better opportunity for a pitcher in this spot is certainly Luke Weaver based on what the offense is showing on the other side. So it's a weird non-recommendation, I guess, as far as Weaver. It's more of a, if somebody puts a gun to your head and tells you have to play either Colin Ray or Luke Weaver, I think I would choose Weaver. Better matchup. That said, I think the play here for DFS purposes is to go to the Brewers bats. In not in an either or sense, just in a, do you want Luke Weaver or do you want the Brewers bats? You want the Brewers bats. I don't think I'm breaking any new ground there. There's plenty of home runs on the board with Luke Weaver. 10.5% barrels, 4.73% home runs. He's been worse for home runs than Colin Ray on the other side. So there is justification in targeting Luke Weaver with bats. I just wanted to clarify how these two guys look, I guess, versus one another as those extreme value plays. Yelich off the top, good season for Christian Yelich. 10.5% barrels, 54% hard hits, 11 home runs, 21 stolen bases, 129 WRC plus, a 170 ISO. He's never going to be the 40 home run hitter from like the MVP seasons or 35 or whatever he got those years. But he's a very, very, very good player who hits the ball very hard, who creates runs very well, who steals bases. People don't like Christian Yelich, and I don't understand why. 5,000, 3,700, it's a great price for that player. William Contreras, Willy Adames, kind of flawed power hitters. 9 home runs on the season and 286 as a catcher for Contreras. The better of the two hitters, the more productive at a 112 WRC plus. Everybody after Contreras in this lineup is below average for run creation this year, which I think also supports the idea that Weaver's in the better of these two spots. Look at the run creation numbers for this team versus this team. And we're going to say that this team has the better shot at putting up a big score today? It's just weird to me. Vegas is in a weird spot on this one to me. Willy Adames does have power, 14 home runs on the season, but he doesn't do a lot else at the plate. 15% below average creating runs, strikes out 25.3%, 209, 293, 395. Not a great option. Owen Miller steals a handful of bases from time to time, 258 plate appearances, 11 steals. Decent hit tool in play, but not a great on base. 99 WRC plus, hovering around league average. Tapia, Perkins, Anderson, Turang, Joey Weimer at the bottom of the lineup. Everybody here is kind of mediocre. Weimer at least has good counting stats, 12 home runs, 11 steals on the season, but 14% worse than average creating runs. I do not love this Brewers lineup. They're cheap, though, so I think that'll drive some ownership here. Maybe it's a better spot to, even though they look okay, maybe we're targeting a little less than the field. It would depend on where the field's ownership comes down, but if I don't end up with a ton of Brewers value shares here, I'm not that broken up about it. It is a playable spot. Don't get me wrong. None of this is saying that Luke Weaver's a good pitcher, you guys. I do not want to mix that message. None of it's saying that the Brewers might not go out there and bend a score or put up 10 runs today. They could. They definitely could. There is that opportunity against Luke Weaver. But if everybody goes there because they're so cheap and they've got that opportunity, I don't mind being that far away from it. I don't know where I go for value instead, because I was already saying that like Cleveland is in kind of that situation as well. So it's just a matter of how things fall. But it doesn't look like a great DFS spot to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Anybody defending it vehemently in the chat? Dennis says I'm pairing Jurickson Profar with Alenda's DS. Yeah, just grab those two guys as one-offs. You're sure to collect 4 home runs there today. Bring them both back to life for the second half. Blackburn late scratch. Pruitt will start. Yeah, nothing on DK pop-up. Didn't have anything on the relief situation for Oakland there either. All right, we're going to make a good time through these last two games. I'm going to try and knock these out in like 12 minutes. 3:15, get out of here and build lineups in 45 minutes or whatever. All right, so Pirates, Diamondbacks. Pirates going up against Kyle Nelson and then a relief situation, a bullpen situation. I don't think we need to go there. He's 4,000 for Nelson on the DK slate. He is a 30% strikeout guy. I just don't know that there's a ton of pitches involved here. I think we're looking at a handful of 20-ish pitches, just a single inning type of an opener. I don't think he sees more than an inning. So it's really dicey. I wouldn't do it on FanDuel. If you wanted to do it on DK, you're hunting for that cheapo strikeouts and you're hoping that he pitches more than one inning. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. I don't think it's going to walk me into any Pirates shares because they're without both Andrew McCutchen and Ke'Bryan Hayes now. Both those guys went on the IL before last night's game. So now we're really dealing with a thin Pirates lineup. Projected to open with, did this get confirmed? Pirates is confirmed. All right. They were correct with that projection. I was correct that Jack Suwinski moved up the lineup to third. That makes a ton of sense. It was weird that he was still projected on Schmabs in the, I think, 7 spot in the lineup. So the actual Pirates lineup, I like the top 3. You could argue top 4, maybe top 5, or at least playable with Carlos Santana and G-Man Choi in there. G-Man, I think, has stats this year. The just naming convention here. Not coming through, but has missed a lot of time. That's why he's so cheap. Formerly a good power hitter from time to time, but not an overly reliable guy. 2,325. If you're building Pirate stacks, you definitely can include him there, but he's not a great option. Suwinski, definitely a great option. 19 home runs on the season, 7 steals, 138 WRC plus. He's been their best player this season. Not even going to apologize to Brian Reynolds for saying that. Suwinski's just flat been better than him this season in fewer plate appearances. Reynolds was in and out of the lineup briefly, hit most of his 9 home runs fairly early on in the year. 9 homers, 8 stolen bases. Has been kind of flat for quite a while now. Henry Davis, Reynolds, Suwinski, Carlos Santana would be my 4-man. Add G-Man Choi for a 5th. I don't need much of anything from the bottom of this lineup. Pretty weak back end. Nick Gonzalez, Jared Triolo, Tucupita Marcano, Jason DeLay. Not a lot to love there. Diamondbacks. This is the interesting spot in this game. Keller projects well for me, but he's kind of cooled a little bit. He roared out of the gate like 10 great starts, was dominant, was putting up strikeouts, was pitching clean innings. Hasn't been bad in his minor downturn. It's like a regression to norm of good Mitch Keller, not norm of like bad Mitch Keller. There's bad Mitch Keller, there's good Mitch Keller, and then there's outstanding Mitch Keller. He was outstanding Mitch for the first part of the season. I think we're just back to like good Mitch for right now, which is like the realistic expectation for this guy. He's had a few starts in a row of moderate strikeouts, not giving up a ton of runs. It's not like he's had 10-run blowups or anything like that, but 4 or 5 runs, only 4, 5, 6 strikeouts, not the big-time strikeout performances from earlier in the year. Still overall, though, good numbers, 27.3% strikeouts, 3.39 xFIP, 3.52 ERA, 110 innings, so giving you fairly reliable depth in 18 starts. I like Mitch Keller as a pitcher. I just kind of wish he was a little bit cheaper in this spot. The DK price isn't bad. 10-2 on FanDuel. It's aggressive because this is a good Diamondbacks lineup. I don't know whether we see Corbin Carroll today. He didn't play last night, did he? Oh, wait. It's easier to check here. He was banged up with the surgically repaired shoulder going into last night's game. I don't remember seeing him confirmed last night. He did play last night. All right. So Corbin Carroll, I guess, will be in the lineup. Cool. All right. I didn't realize that he had gotten into the game yesterday. He's dealing with something with his shoulder. He came out the day before yesterday. They were going to send him for an MRI. They were saying they think it's clean. They weren't worried about it. So if you get Carroll, bump to the lineup for sure. What I was getting at with the Diamondbacks, though, is they're just a very, very good team. I talked about this yesterday. All these low strikeout rates. Everybody in the top 7 in this projected below a 20% strikeout rate. Average is 18.2. Some of their key hitters, Christian Walker, 18%. Lourdes Gurriel, 17.8%. Both those guys are premium power hitters. Corbin Carroll, 19.4%. He's got 18 home runs, 26 steals. A lot of run creation upside, a lot of power, low strikeout rates. I really like this group of hitters. These guys. And I wouldn't be shy about bolting on shares of Perdomo from the top. Emmanuel Rivera has been really good from the 6th spot there. And 164 plate appearances, 303, 329, 387 for him. Below average on run creation, not hitting for a lot of power, but a guy who can, good hit tool, get on base, maybe turn the lineup over, or maybe go into a power day for Jake McCarthy where you can drive the ball a little bit. He's come around at the plate. Not a great power hitter by any means, but expected to hit for moderate power, that 15-ish home runs, and highly regarded for his speed, 20 stolen bases. You know, maybe it settles into, in a full season, a better full season than he's had so far this year. Maybe it settles into the 12 homers, 25, 30 steals kind of a player, but an effective guy for DFS purposes. But it's really, this core of hitters, plus him. Bottom third, if you don't get any Jake McCarthy, Alec Thomas, Carson Kelly, it's probably not going to burn you. But I do like that top end for the Diamondbacks here. I do like Mitch. I'll have some Mitch. But out of the top projected pitchers, he's probably my least favorite just in terms of how good the Diamondbacks have been in terms of avoiding the strikeouts, how they've hit for power, how they'll probably come through in my model. They're not all that expensive on the FanDuel slate, so maybe I grab a little bit of value here. Kind of like the spot. So I get some Diamondbacks. Only minor shares of the top 5 for Pittsburgh, really. Even with the relief situation, the opener into the bullpen game situation for the Diamondbacks here, I don't think it's worth getting over the top with Diamondback stacks. So it's not an overly strong spot for me. And Vegas thinks this is an okay spot for D-backs as well. 4.82 implied run total. So that's one of the better run totals that's not over 5. The ones over 5 were the Brewers, the Red Sox firmly at 5.52. The Giants at 5.39, and the Rangers at 5.60. And then we had the Guardians at 4.9 that I didn't really love, and the Reds 4.56 that I do really like, and the D-backs now at 4.82. Everybody else in the low 4s or 3s. So I think this is a playable offense for sure on the Diamondback side. Keller's playable, so are the Diamondbacks. The other side of the coin, not as much. 310. Maybe we'll go a little bit beyond 315, but I'm going to really try and get off the show so I can actually build lineups. I think this is a good spot for pitching on both sides. I think the Phillies' bats are playable against Braxton Garrett. What you get with Garrett is 5 or 6 innings of pretty good pitching. High strikeout pitcher, 27.5%. Doesn't really walk anybody. 4.2% walks. 2.91 xFIP. Has given up a little bit of pop, but is decent at keeping the ball down, so it doesn't really run into too much home run trouble. I like Braxton Garrett at 96, 98. I'll definitely have some shares. The Phillies, like I said before, 18th ranked WRC plus, but they do hit for power in the split. A 197 collective ISO against lefties is a little bit dangerous. But they've also got a 25.4% strikeout rate against lefties. So that gives him his upside back. If he avoids the home runs, I like Garrett to pitch 5-6 clean innings. They don't typically give him a lot of depth, but he pitched beyond the fifth in a handful of starts in a row. So I think we're probably have upside at least to 6, maybe a quality start. There's a good chance he puts up a viable start here. But I will roster some Phillies just on the idea of some power upside, some run creation upside, some star caliber players on not the greatest slate in the world. But you can see in the home run marks where the projections are, the home run marks are a little off from where the projections are. So they're projected more for run creation, for sequencing than they are for power upside. Outside of Kyle Schwarber, it is 12.27 to basically double up the entire rest of the lineup. But Schwarber, Turner, Castellanos, Harper, Real Muto, Alec Boehm, that 1 through 6 is highly, highly playable. You get the bottom third that I don't love against the lefty here. I prefer them greatly in the bottom third. I think it's a 1 through 9 lineup when they face a righty with those 3 talented lefties. They go to this version of the lineup pretty much every time against a lefty and just play the pure platoon. So you get Alec Boehm. Alec Boehm's the one who plays every day, regardless of the handedness, basically. But these bottom 3 guys swap out. I don't love this. They're playable parts. They're okay, but not one of those guys is what I'd call a good player. Edmundo Sosa does hit a home run every time we call him out, though, so let's call him out. Edmundo's a viable option down there. 243, 263, 393. That's not a good triple slash. A 150 ISO is not great. 5 home runs in 181 plate appearances. Not a major home run hitter whatsoever, but he's always cheap. He's never owned, and he does tend to knock the ball out of the park when we talk about him. Marlins side of things, going up against Ranger Suarez. I'm interested in Suarez here. You can see he projects out as one of the top pitchers right in that group of 33 to 35. Not expensive, 8,700, 9,600, and pitching really well. 3.67 ERA, 3.71 xFIP, 23.4% strikeouts. Is good at limiting launch angle, has given up a few instances of power this year. 9.3% barrels is a little high for him. 2.13% home runs. It's not like it's gotten out of hand by any means. 7.6 degree average launch. Last year it was 6.8% barrels, 5.1 degrees. Year before, 2.6% barrels, 4.4 degrees, 0.96% home runs. Bullpen innings baked into this sample. These were all starts. So he's just a good pitcher in terms of limiting power, limiting home run upside, finding some strikeouts. It's nice to see him back at this kind of a strikeout rate rather than where he dipped to last year. So I really like the spot for Suarez here. Marlins are an effective lineup against lefties from time to time. They do have the massive power of Jorge Soler. So even with all that quality for cutting launch angle and everything baked into the model here for Suarez, Jorge Soler's at a 13.95 in the home run model. 22 on the season, destroys lefties. If anybody's getting one off of Suarez, it's probably Soler. Brian De La Cruz in the leadoff spot, so you get the version of the lineup with no Luis Arias. That's a major, major downturn for this lineup. I didn't realize that until just now. So another tick in the favor of Ranger Suarez. Different leadoff hitter now. 322 on base, 274 average, compared to the guy that's hitting 385 or whatever it is and getting on base at like a 420 clip. That's a big ding. I do like De La Cruz. I think he's a good player, but in that leadoff spot, that's not where you want him, and it's a downturn for that stack. You can play the top 3, top 4 for the Marlins here. Julie Gurriel, still an effective hit tool, not doing a lot otherwise at the plate. Garrett Cooper, a little bit of right-handed power. Gene Segura has been awful. John Birdie hasn't been stealing bases. Led the league with 41 last year, has 8 this year. Dane Myers is apparently a player on the Florida Marlins. Miami Marlins, excuse me. Man, I'm old. Don't have Dane Myers in here. I don't know why. 14 plate appearances. I should have had him pop up by now. Oh, let's just take a quick... It's worth checking out who Dane Myers is when we're crunched for time. That's what you want to do when you're saying we're going to jump off the show in a minute. Boy. That's how hooked on this stuff I am. He's 27. He's an unranked prospect. 25 homers in the Detroit system in Double-A last year. 20 stolen bases. That's good. 7 home runs in and 14 stolen bases in 215 Double-A plate appearances from Miami this year. 6 homers and 2 stolen bases in 83 in Triple-A from Miami this year. All right, not completely uninteresting. Dane Myers, 3,000, 2,200 in the outfield for the Miami Marlins. If you're going to Miami, I guess you can include some Dane Myers. He hits right-handed. Nick Fortes, Garrett Hampson, no real interest in those two guys. Very limited interest in Marlin stacks whatsoever. It would be really like these three guys and then maybe this guy that I just learned exists. You could throw Julie into that. If you're playing on DK, you could certainly include him. You could do something like this with the catcher involved. It's not great. Not a lot of home run upside. Not a lot of potential. So to round it out real quick, let's jump over to the pitching board. Like I said, big collection of guys between 33 and 35 points. Manaea, I don't know if we've gotten him confirmed yet, but he'd be on the board. He projects right there with those guys if we get 4 and change innings out of him. I just need that confirmation that he's going to be the bulk reliever. If I had that, I'd be like, you can play Sean Manaea here, at least on DK at 55. 73 is still dicey for me with that bulk reliever situation on FanDuel, particularly with all of these guys. Like, one of these guys is going to have a good day, book a win, book a quality start. My favorites on the day are Gav Williams, Paxton, probably Paxton. Definite opportunity there. He'll probably be really popular, though. Really like Gav Williams. He's cheap, though, so he'll probably push a lot of popularity. So avoiding the idea that those two will probably be your most popular starters, Heaney's totally playable. He's not expensive. Ranger Suarez, totally playable, not expensive. Mitch Keller, playable, kind of expensive. Not the greatest spot, but I will have some Mitch. He'd be the bottom man in this group of 5 for me, but he's right there with those other guys. It's these guys, and then it's everybody else. I will take some Singer. For sure. That's a dart throw. I will take some Garrett for sure on the idea that he's a good pitcher. This is actually kind of low for him. 23.5. It is the Phils. There's more upside. So if I'm picking anybody that's in that, like, I think there's a higher ceiling than the projection might suggest, it's probably Braxton Garrett. If he goes 6, books you the quality start, he's probably on his way to a decent strikeout total as well. If he doesn't, then he's already gotten blown up and it doesn't matter. So I think you're getting either a good game or a pretty mediocre game out of Braxton Garrett. I don't see a lot of in between. Ray, Weaver, Pruitt, Irvin, Seabold, Nelson, kind of off the board from me. If you're feeling it, go for it. But yeah, dicey at best. I think Ray and Weaver would be the 2 most playable out of that group. And like I said, I prefer the worst of those 2 pitchers targeting the worst of those 2 lineups, even though Vegas sees it the other way around. All right, gang, that's the long and short of it. 3:18. Got to get some lineups built. Less than an hour to go before the slate starts. Let me say my goodbyes. Po DGen Stoner got into the chat just in time for the end of the show. What's up, buddy? Wake and Bake DFS baseball bitches from Garden City, Colorado. Love it. Greg's in the chat. Greg says, yeah, he seemed okay. Still so good. Carroll lost feeling in his hand after a swing. Okay. I hadn't seen the actual diagnosis, Greg. I appreciate that. I know that he had a surgically repaired shoulder like two years ago and had been feeling soreness. Then he came out of the game after that swing. And I saw when he came out, it looked like it was a shoulder thing. But if he's in there, he's totally playable. I'm not going to not play him. If the Diamondbacks consider him good to go, I consider him good to go. Let's put it that way. All right. I think that's pretty much it, gang. Time to punch out. Let's go build some lineups. Good luck out there, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Saturdays. We'll be back with it tomorrow. Hopefully the slate looks normalized with both slates starting up probably 105 start and probably like 15 gamer since it's the last day before the All-Star break. I'm sure they'll screw me over in the morning, but it'll be an early rise and an early show tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Hit the like button for me. Hit the subscribe button so you know when we go live. And I'll catch you tomorrow. Good luck.